Welcome to another episode of Perception Evolution Project by WCE. This is our Blue is the New White series, and today I've got a special guest in the office for an in-person podcast, which I love to do, Mr. Austin Peterson.
That's
How
correct.
are you today, man?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad. I appreciate you coming in and talking to me. We had some discussions earlier about how kind of your whole family is in the business and the trades, and so I'm excited to talk to you. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience and tell them who you are and why you're here.
Yeah, you bet. So like I said, Austin Peterson, my company is Backbone Financial, and I'm affiliated with Lincoln Financial Advisors, which really just means that that's the group that I have to affiliate with to sell securities. Been doing this for 21 years. Like you said, most of my family is in the trades, and so I grew up in a blue-collar family, and now my focus is on business owners and the people who help them run those businesses to make sure that they're financially secure now and into the future.
Very cool. So do you work with a lot of skilled trades companies?
Yeah, fair amount. Everything from manufacturing to trucking to the one-off individual trucker to larger manufacturing companies, construction companies, that sort of thing.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So what'd your family do in the trades?
So my father, or he's technically my stepfather, but I call him my father. He raised me from the time I was about 6 years old. He was a stucco contractor. My uncle was a stucco contractor. My brother is a heating and air contractor. My grandfather was a farmer, so I guess trades adjacent. Maybe we would say that. And then I've got family that's still in the trucking industry today. Very cool. Yeah.
So what made you decide on this path? It sounds like you were kind of surrounded by people in the trades, with your family and stuff like that. And so what was it that shifted you towards the financial aspect of things?
It really came down to a class that I took in ninth grade. It was an entrepreneurship and finance or entrepreneurship and stock market class that really kind of opened up my eyes to what the other possibilities were. I grew up around it. I enjoyed being outdoors and doing certain things, but I could tell pretty early on that it wasn't what I wanted to do, but I wanted to still be involved with people who were involved in the trades. And so it was another way to still be involved with people that own businesses or that are working in the trades, to help them to get some advice that they don't always get on the financial side, and to do something that for me I was a little bit more passionate about personally.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think that's really cool because you grew up surrounded by this type of work, so you have kind of a deeper respect for what it means, as a whole. If you've heard my podcast at all, I talk a lot about the perceptions that revolve around the industry and in the industry, and what people think about just what it means to be in the skilled trades. So it's always nice to be able to talk to somebody who grew up with the right perspective, and really got to see behind the curtain of what the trades are and how beneficial they can be.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, for those who are in the white collar industries, if you will, I think a lot of times you do find them, looking down their nose, so to speak, at somebody who chose to be in the trades. And I don't feel that way. It wasn't the way that I was raised. If anything, growing up in a blue-collar family was what taught me to work as hard as I work today, and to apply what I learned there to what I do today to make me even more successful in what I do. And that's really just allowing me to be more successful in helping those that need the advice that I provide.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I'm excited to talk to you today, because you provide that perspective of, choosing a different route. I talk to a lot of people that obviously are in the trades or were in the trades or whatever, but it's always great to talk to somebody who's been in them from a family standpoint, from a connection standpoint, but chose a different path. Because especially in my book too, I talk a lot about college and the benefits, pros and cons. You know, a lot of people take a lot of the cons that I say away because I focus on them. You know, obviously just because in the skilled trades it's not a necessary path. But I'm also, you know, a big advocate for college if what you want to do requires it.
Sure.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ideas as to what college is actually required for, and you know, what areas you can pursue without a college education that some kids might think you need a college education for.
Sure.
So let's talk about your college career. I usually talk about high school, but I know what your perception of the trades were in high school, you know, being surrounded by so many people that were in them already.
Yeah.
So let's get right into college. What did you actually go to college for?
Yeah, so I have an undergraduate degree in French, of all things.
Oh, okay.
So definitely not financial world, definitely not, you know, in the trades. But for me, I knew that I wanted to get a master's degree in business. That was the direction that I felt I needed to go to be successful in what I wanted to do. And business schools aren't really looking for somebody who has an undergraduate in business. They want you to do something that's a little bit different from what you're going to learn all over again, so to speak, in business school. And so it was an easy way to get through college with an undergraduate degree fairly quickly. I tested out of a bunch of classes because I lived in France for 2 years and speak the language fluently. And so that helped me to get through my undergraduate degree quicker, and I had a young family already as I finished up, and so being able to finish that quickly and move on to what I really wanted to study was important.
Yeah, very very cool. It's an interesting path. So did you jump into business ownership, entrepreneurship right after college?
Actually, while in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I started in the business that I'm in while I was in college, finishing up my degree.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So, and how valuable do you think that college degree was for what you do now?
Well, the undergraduate, it didn't really help. I mean, I actually do have a client that speaks French, and so
oh, there you go.
It does help in that aspect.
Justified.
But, yeah, exactly. But you know, the business degree, I would say, definitely has helped me. It's funny. I would certainly say I'm an advocate for college. Like you said, if it's going to be something that you want to do and it's required for that, you know, for that avocation that you choose. Mm-hmm. But the value of my business school degree is, in my opinion, not really the education that I gained, which was important, but it's the people that I met along the way and the network that I gained by being involved in that business school.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Yeah. That you know, it's more of the network that you build while you're in college in some areas of study. Yeah. You know, that provides them the most value.
Yeah.
Which is good, and I guess you know, especially with how I talk about college and you know what I talk about a lot. There's a lot to be said about networking, you know, and making and establishing good connections, mentors, even, you know, or just what could turn out to be business partners or long-term, you know, business relationships, what have you.
Yep.
You know, so there's a lot to be said about that. So, what do you think is the biggest perception revolving around the trades right now? You know, from somebody who doesn't come from a background like you do, that kind of is on the outside looking in. What do you think is the most common perception?
I would say that the most common perception that you hear from people who grew up in white collar families, so to speak, is that people who work in the trades don't have an education or didn't have the propensity to go beyond a high school education. And so I think a lot of times they even feel that it wasn't really a choice to go into the trades. That's all they could have done. Mm-hmm. And that may be the case sometimes, but I ultimately don't think that's the case in most cases. And there are great career paths and great ways to make a very good living in the trades, and I don't think that most people who grow up in white collar families believe that to be the case.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that. So how do you suppose we could change that perception?
You know, I don't think that the high schools and the junior highs even probably do a good enough job of highlighting all of the opportunities that are out there, and helping people to understand that college isn't the only path. And if you're not a great student, that going to a junior college isn't the only option that you have besides, having good enough grades to get into a 4-year university right out of high school. I think if we highlighted the other opportunities that are out there, whether it be trade schools or internships or, externships, all these types of things that you could do while in high school to be exposed to the different trades. And if you can see as a high school teacher, for example, that somebody's showing a propensity for something or an interest in something, well, let's help them find that interest in themselves. I tell people all the time, never choose what you do for a living based on how much money you can make.
Right.
Choose what you do for a living because it's something that you're going to enjoy doing. You spend more time doing what you do for a living than you spend with your own family in most cases. And so you should hope that you're doing something that you enjoy. I have a lot of friends who are attorneys and they make great money. They are very unhappy in what they do for work.
Yeah. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be said about that. And you're absolutely right. Oftentimes we do spend more time at our job and our career, than we do in our personal life or with our family. So being able to enjoy what it is that you do is far more valuable than being paid for it.
Yeah.
And I was lucky, myself, because I didn't. I say all the time, that I'm not passionate about fixing fryers. I'm not passionate about HVAC units, themselves. I'm passionate. I found my passion in the trades because they've allowed me to kind of pursue what I do enjoy, which is helping people and, fixing something that's broken and building something bigger than myself, which something about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so it's more of a realistic approach, because you hear all the time, right? Follow your passion, you'll never work a day in your life, and that's true to a point, but it's also, you have to be realistic about it, and I think the trades are a great way to do that because there are just so many different trajectories available and so many different opportunities that people might not know about that exist within them. No matter what you're passionate about, there's a lot of that you can find in the skilled trades industry.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I went to a meeting this morning with some other business owners, and one of the things that came out of that is that we derive energy from accomplishing something. And it doesn't matter what it is that we've accomplished, if it's something that matters either to us personally or to somebody else, right? Fixing a fryer for somebody who's running a restaurant that needs that fryer to work because that's how they make money, big deal. Right?
Yeah.
Fixing somebody's furnace because they need heat at night or they need air conditioning that, it's being pushed by that furnace. It's a big deal to those people. And so you can put your head on your pillow at night knowing that you did something that was important in this world and that helped somebody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me, with what you do, what allows you to lay your head on your pillow at night and feel good about what you did that day?
Yeah. So, a lot of what I do is actually about helping business owners protect their businesses as well as their families, right? And so a lot of that will be whether it's insurance that has to protect their business if something happens to them or protects their livelihood if something happens to them. That helps me to feel good and know that, my gosh, if something happened to Josh tomorrow and he's not able to work, but I helped him by putting together a financial plan that included disability, for example, disability insurance that takes care of his family no matter what, and that keeps the overhead of his business going while he's not able to work, and hopefully he can return later. That matters. There's an impact there so that everything that you've worked so hard to build doesn't go away because of a freak accident.
Absolutely. So I bet the satisfaction from that is kind of bittersweet because, it is something that you provide a lot of times in case of an emergency, and the only time it's actually getting used is in the event of an emergency. So I imagine that in your position that satisfaction is almost, I don't want to say contradicted, but it's like, you're proud that you were able to offer this service, but you kind of wish in the moment that whatever was activating it didn't have to be.
Yeah, definitely. Delivering a life insurance check is it's one of the best things that I get to do, but also one of the worst things that I get to do, right? And I don't want to make you think that insurance is really all that I do, because that's not the case. But we've got to protect what we have first, and then we build assets from there, right? And so it may be selling the business later, it may be whatever. But there was one time about 10 years ago where I was delivering a life insurance check, and the whole family's there, and the widow is putting her arms around me and you actually using the words, "We love you, thank you so much." Well, you don't really think, and those of you who are listening and yourself included, you don't really think about telling your financial planner that you love them, right? But it was the work that I had done for him over the years, the life insurance, the investments, all those sorts of things that we had put in place so that when this did actually happen, they knew they had somebody they could turn to and rely on. The money was there, but really more importantly, there was somebody that was there and knew what was going on so that they didn't have to focus on that. They could focus on burying their husband and father at that point, and then we would deal with everything else later because Austin has it. Austin's got it taken care of for us. And that's, it doesn't get any better than that.
No, absolutely. And that's interesting. That's very interesting. It's because you don't think about a situation like that, and somebody being so grateful for their financial planner. I suppose it makes a lot of sense now that I hear you say it, but I don't think I would have thought that otherwise. So it does sound like very rewarding, work.
Yeah.
As far as, so what else do you do? Let's get off the morbid subject. And what else do you do as far as the financial planning aspect of it? Without death.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll stay away from death, but really, it's a comprehensive plan. And so typically I'll sit down with clients and I'll charge them a fee for putting together a plan, because most people don't have a financial plan, right? People may have some life insurance and they may have a 401k plan at their job, and they may have owned a house and maybe they've got a living trust and a will, but they don't really have a plan, right? They haven't put together this plan that says, okay, what happens if, and how do we get to this level by this point? And if I know that my income is $30,000 today, and I know that I've got to fast forward that with inflation for 30 years to the time that I'm going to retire, and I've got to be able to live on $30,000 a year in today's dollars, what's that number? And then how am I going to get there? That's really the bulk of what I do. I sit down with clients, and it's kind of a harsh way of saying it, but one of the things that I'll say all the time, or something, a creed that I live by first, is serve the client first, last, and always, and the compensation will take care of itself. But I also believe that I'll sit across from somebody and I'll say, this person's financial life is a mess. They don't know it. It's not their fault. But somebody is going to take that mess into their hands, and they're going to solve it for them and put them in a better position for the future than they are today. That's really what I do, is a plan to make sure that if something happens early, great, we've got that taken care of. If it doesn't, which is what we're hoping for, then there's also a plan for that, and we make sure that everybody's financially secure later on. Investment advisors will focus on returns and providing an investment portfolio, and that's part of what I do, but I'm not here to be the investment advisor that's going to beat the S&P 500. I'm here to say, we know what we need to accomplish, and this is the plan to get there. And it doesn't really matter what happens with the markets in between, because we know where we need to get, and we've put together a plan to get there.
Absolutely. And that sounds incredibly necessary for just about everybody, I would say.
Sure.
And I talk to a lot of people in the skilled trades. I talk to a lot of people, as you mentioned earlier, adjacent to the skilled trades, and I like to talk to people who serve the skilled trades. And I think I would classify you as somebody who serves the trades, especially since I always make the joke that, if you're in the skilled trades, chances are you've got a lot of money to manage, because there's a lot of money to be made in the trades, which is something that I talk about. And I think that's coming more and more to light now. I see it more than I have in the past. especially with regard to entrepreneurship and business ownership. Somebody goes from being an apprentice to a technician to a manager to a business owner. They've got a lot of things that they need to protect.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking with firsthand experience, obviously, in that. So I think that the service that you provide not only to entrepreneurs in general, but to the trades industries is incredibly valuable. And anybody listening should definitely listen to what Austin is saying here. But
thank you.
So let me ask you this. There's a lot of lessons to be learned in the trades. And since you grew up around them, what do you think is the biggest principle or the biggest lesson that you've learned from the trades themselves, either just by being around people who are in them or, serving the people who are in them?
Yeah, well, two things I guess I would say. First thing is that you put in a full day's work, no matter what. No matter what you choose to do for a living, put in a full day's work, put in your best effort, and let the results speak for themselves. So I was raised by a father and a mother who understood the importance of hard work, and I was taught that from a very young age, and that you work for what you get. Right, from a financial standpoint, you put in the work. Nothing's handed to you, so to speak. And then the second thing is that you're kind and respectful to everybody. It doesn't matter where they come from, what their background is, what they do for a living, how much money or how little money they have. Everybody has value, and everybody deserves respect and kindness.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I wholeheartedly believe that as well. Who's got time for anything else? Yeah. I mean, we've only got this life to live, and kindness is incredibly important. And mutual respect. So it's funny. I often hear that hard work is a value that people get from the trades. I see hard work as a basic fundamental in whatever it is that you decide to do. And I think you're a very good example of that, learning the hard work from coming from a family that was in the skilled trades and that instilled that value in you, and that you were undoubtedly able to turn around and use in what you do today, right? Because, I even say in my book that, if you don't learn the value of hard work, then it's hard to be successful in anything that you decide to do, whether it's trade work or not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
So back to what you do, what do you, aside from that feeling of gratitude, in the event that something should happen and having that, what do you love most about what you do on a day-to-day basis?
It's really interacting with people. It's business owners for the most part that I'm interacting with, or, their key employees. But learning what it is that made them successful and what they enjoy about what they do every day. We're talking about money in most cases, but that's not what's really important to the people that I'm serving. Money is a means to get somewhere, but we sit down and we have real important conversations about what do you want your legacy to be, right? And that's more important to most people than money, right? Legacy or money is part of a legacy in a lot of cases, but it's really what do you want your kids to remember when you're gone, and what do you want your kids to continue to do or think after you're gone, and how does this money that we've got and that we've built up and that we're leaving to them, how is that going to help them accomplish that? That, for me, is an impactful conversation. I mean, we have real-world conversations, and, it sounds cheesy, I think, sometimes, but, we've got tissues sitting in the office because these are emotional conversations that people are having. Yeah. People, one, you've built a business, you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into, and that's an emotional thing, right? And then the other side of that is we're talking about your family, and people get emotional when we talk about about those things.
Yeah, you intertwine those two and you've got a perfect storm.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
totally understand that for sure. It sounds like a very rewarding career path that you chose, and I never would have thought I'd be saying that to a financial planner. I don't know why, but it does, now that I'm getting that perspective, it sounds like very meaningful work,
Yeah, I think honestly, those of us who do what I do, because not everybody who calls themselves a financial planner or a financial advisor does what I do, right? And so I think there's a lot of misconception about what we do in general. And people will equate us to a used car salesman, or you're just selling insurance products, or you're doing that. And that's, I think, the hardest part about doing what I do is that if they don't know me and they don't give me a chance to really learn what it is that I do and the value that I provide, they just prejudge me a lot like those in the trades are prejudged by people sometimes, and believe that I'm just trying to make money and I'm hawking a product, so to speak. And that's the furthest thing from the truth with what I do.
Interesting. Yeah. So, and I guess perceptions can span across several different industries.
Yeah.
Because I guess you're right. Now that I think about it, if an image in my mind of either an insurance broker or maybe a financial advisor is that what products are they going to try to sell me?
Right.
And so it's good. I think that this conversation is good too to open people's eyes to the truth. And again, like any industry, skilled trades included, I'm sure that there are some people in the industry that fit that stereotype, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
But it's always nice to be able to get the perspective of somebody who doesn't, to help change the mass perspective of everything.
Yeah.
So if you could say one thing to the listeners about choosing a career specifically in the skilled trades, what would that be?
Biggest piece of advice is kind of, I already said it, and that's really that, find something that is meaningful to you. Like you said, you're not passionate about fixing fryers, right? And so you may not find something that you're truly passionate about in the trades, but if it's meaningful to you to build something, right, and you're able to step back and look at this house that you just framed, for example, and that's meaningful to you, then great. Let's find what that thing is, that one thing that's meaningful to you, and then marry that with something that you choose to do for a living.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's great advice. So personally, and this is something I love to ask everybody on or off camera, how do you define success? And with that being said, after you answer how you define success, I want you to tell me how your experience in the skilled trades or working with people in the skilled trades contributes to your idea of success.
Yeah, so I guess the biggest thing that I would say, or the way that I would define success is did I make the world a better place for me having been in it? Right. And that can be done on a daily basis. It can be done on an hourly basis where you're really doing a self-assessment and being self-aware enough to say, am I doing something that makes the world a better place? And the world can be changed one person at a time, right? It can be a word of kindness to you. It can be a word of kindness to anybody. It can be helping an old lady cross the street, helping somebody with their groceries. Have I done something that made the world a better place today? And that's easy to translate over into what you do for a living, right? But I think that if you are doing something that's not making the world a better place, or you don't feel like you're having an impact on the world, then you're probably not finding the success that you're looking for.
Makes sense.
And then remind me the second part again.
How have the skilled trades enabled you to find your definition of success?
Oh, I think that for me, growing up in a household of skilled trades workers, it was taking pride in your work, right? And no matter what that is, just do the best at whatever you're doing, right? Don't don't be happy as a painter by throwing some paint on the walls and it's, there's shadows and, all that kind of stuff because it didn't cover well. Or, my dad was a stucco contractor. If you can't stand back and look at that house and think, I would be happy with that stucco job on my own house, then you're probably not taking enough pride in your work.
I think that's a really good answer, because there's a lot of things to be said about, taking pride in your work, and being a tradesperson almost requires it. A good tradesperson, I should say. Like you said, any painter can throw paint on the side of a house, but, somebody who takes pride in their work is going to make sure that, when they step back, it almost looks like a masterpiece. And I think that's something that people can carry with them, no matter what they do, in every other aspect of their life, I should say, that pride in what you do, that follow through in conversation, and it translates to much more, than just in a work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Work ethic standpoint.
Yep.
So before we wrap it up, Austin, is there anything else that you wanted to say to the audience and people about skilled trades or financial planning?
One, I would just say first on the skilled trade side, I applaud you for doing what you do. I think that it's an important part of our economy. And I didn't say at the beginning, but the name Backbone Financial comes from working with the backbone of the American economy. And the skilled trades are certainly a part of that. I would say small businesses in general are a part of that. So if you're working for a small business or working in the trades, you're definitely a part of the backbone of the American economy. The other reason I chose backbone is because of the connotation of integrity. It's important to me, which, leads to the financial planning side. I mean, what I would say is that everybody needs some help from a professional in financial planning. And I would spend some time researching and finding somebody who truly has some background in what it is that you're looking for. It doesn't take much to get a license to sell insurance or to sell even mutual funds or, different investments like that. But somebody who's really put in the time and the effort to learn the business and gotten a designation, for example, the certified financial planner designation, those are the types of things that you're looking for. And so I think that sometimes we think that if we're, Johnny Lunch Bucket and we make $40,000 a year, that we don't really need the professional advice. But the reality is everybody needs some professional advice, and make sure that you're taking advantage of the opportunities that you have through your employer, right? The days of having a pension are gone, right? That doesn't really exist much anymore. I still have some clients that are in their senior years that are living off of pensions, but I don't have clients that are in their 30s and 40s, outside of maybe teachers, for example, that have pensions today. It's just very uncommon. And so it's up to us personally to prepare for retirement ourselves. And it doesn't matter if you make $40,000 a year or you make $400,000 a year. You should be seeking some advice to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to prepare for the future. And then the last bit of advice that I would say is that if you can live on 80% of your income, no matter what that income is, and save 10% of it and donate 10% of it to charity, you'll be in very good shape from a financial standpoint, and you'll feel good about doing something that is impactful to others that are less fortunate than you. I
wholeheartedly agree with that. And I appreciate it. Before we jump off, why don't you tell people where they can find you and how they can contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. So backbonefinancial.com is the website. You can find me on social media as well, LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, it's A. Peterson, CFP, so like Certified Financial Planner. Easy to find on there. Would love to connect. But the website's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. And you can also call the office directly, 480-824-4100.
Awesome. Well, Austin, I appreciate you jumping on with me today and chatting with me about it.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks, Josh.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.